back to our daily show. Here's CJ.
Perhaps I may become a highwayman again, or I may simply be a single drop of rain, but I will remain, and I'll be back again and again and again and again.
Welcome back. The time is 10:02 on this Thursday morning, 63 degrees in downtown Alton, and in 5 days, primary day finally here. And I bet that everyone in this room is going to be excited for primary day to get here. Is that the case?
Oh, yeah.
Sure will.
We're joined by Stephen Adler, Dwight K., and Lee Wathan as we are talking a little bit about the conservative caucus candidates. And this is something very fascinating, gentlemen, because Kurt Prenzler was on the show and we were talking a little bit about this, and Paul Nicolausi joined us as well and filled us in a little bit more about, the data's there. And right now, a Democrat is not going to win in Madison County. If you look at, the last couple of elections, and the point was made that maybe some folks are running as Republicans that really don't cherish those Republican values. And fill me in on this, because you guys know a lot more than I do on this topic. The floor is yours, Senators. How can we start this off today?
Well, a couple cycles ago, we noticed that there were a lot of folks who were running as Republicans, but they get in office, and then all of a sudden, the way they vote, the way they conduct themselves, the way they spend money, all looked a whole lot like not Republicans, like Democrats. And so how do you know, right? Most voters, until the day they go vote, don't pay a lot of attention to these elections. It's a sad thing, but it's the truth.
Well, and Lee, not to cut you off, but local elections are the elections you should follow more closely than anything, because the results directly affect all of us.
That's exactly right. We can talk a lot about who's going to be president. We have a vote.
Right.
That's the role we're going to play, voting, right? But locally, you can get involved. You can make a huge difference locally, and it makes a huge difference because most of your taxes you're going to pay as a citizen are paid right here locally.
100%. And with that being said, Steve, you're running for Circuit Clerk for Madison County, and right now as it sits, Patrick McGray is your opponent in this race. How are you feeling ahead of Tuesday?
I'm feeling like going to be happy to have the election over.
Yeah.
Okay. I joined the Madison County Conservative Caucus to deal with the fact that the Democrats are trying to infiltrate the Madison County Republican Party, and have done so to the extent that we have several candidates on the ballot in Madison County who have only been Republicans for 2 years. One of them is Nick Navasich, the coroner. Linda Ogden from Godfrey is on the ballot. These folks haven't been Republicans for what we consider, long enough to represent the party. The problem is when Democrats get elected as Republicans, and we've seen this since 2016, is that when they show up at the county board and places like that, they don't do the Republican things. They vote against traditionally Republican values, such as voting against tax reform. Okay, we're trying to get a referendum on the ballot to bring tax caps to property tax caps to Madison County. We can't get it on the ballot because the new Republicans join with the older Democrats in the same coalitions that they really had all along, and they're interrupting our right to vote, and we feel that we're right enough to vote on our own tax policy, and they've got special interests that they're representing, and it's just a toxic combination for the taxpayers of Madison County.
Well, and I'm sure for the Republican base of things, it gets pretty confusing, as of now, when you see, I'm sure a lot of your Republican, voters are going, hey, everyone's running as a Republican, what's the problem here? But they don't realize the
CJ,
split.
I have a ballot here in Madison County.
Thank you.
And a Democratic ballot, and as you can see on the Democratic ballot, there is one candidate. Joe Biden is the only candidate on the Democratic ballot for Madison County, and the rest of them are all running as Republicans. And we are here to sound the alarm. Okay, we have a problem here, and folks are saying that Don Trump isn't. There's nobody opposing Don Trump. That's not true. Nikki Haley is still on the ballot. Okay, so if you can, get in and vote, because the problem we have is when folks, good Republicans, don't vote, these Democratic candidates get elected. We, at the top of our ticket, we have Kurt Prenzler. I'm the second on the ticket, and we have a full raft of county board candidates. If you go to www.madcoconservatives.org, you can, you can find out more about our organization.
Well, and I know that, Dwight, that you're also going to be running for the 24th district, or the board seat in the 24th district, correct?
Correct.
And you're based out of Glen Carbon, and who are you facing in your primary?
Fred Schulte.
Okay.
Fred's a resident of Edwardsville, been a meat cutter there, and I think he's retired. But enough about Fred, a little bit about me. I had the pleasure of serving in the General Assembly for 6 years, and so my perspective is a little bit different than most people. All you see in Springfield is the bad things. There's very few good things that come out of Springfield, Illinois, and unfortunately, that's what I see in our county board. Very few good things, a lot of bad things. Let me just give you an example. Springfield is very good at taking choices away from you and mandating things, and that's exactly what's going on in our county board. They don't want you to have any choice whatsoever. And Steve mentioned your choice to vote on your ability to choose when tax increases go in effect. That's called PTIL. Don't you have the right to choose? I think in this form of government, you have the freedom to choose. Your county board in Madison County says no. The large majority says no, you don't have the right to choose. We have, and this is not necessarily a choice issue, it's a common sense issue, but we have an entity out there called MCT, ACT. It's a bus line that's run by Madison County Transit, and lots of buses running around every day on a routine schedule, and most of them are empty day in and day out.
And that's something I've actually noticed, too, just driving by the local bus routes myself. I will say that 100%.
Well, I visited doors since the 23rd of January, and everyone's noticed it. What they don't know is that this entity or these entities have over $100 million in reserve, and the best they can do is keep accumulating that kind of money. And I guess one of my plans is to say we're going to abate that. And once it's abated, we're going to distribute that money back to taxpayers because they need it a whole lot more than a bus company that has a load factor that's maybe 2%.
Right. And Dwight, whenever you correlate the General Assembly to what's going on here in Madison County, when you're talking about that with constituents, do their eyes kind of light up a little bit and just in awe? Because not a lot of people know what's going on in terms of Madison County government and the splits in the party and all of this kind of white noise that's out there. So when they learn about this, is it just kind of a light bulb moment?
Well, there's more people that know about it than I had surmised.
Really?
What I'm doing is filling in the details when I go door to door, and then that locks the deal. Then they say, oh, yes, I do get it, because they've heard bits and pieces. And the Madison County Caucus has done a lot to enhance the understanding of truly what's going on. Steve mentioned Democrats running as Republicans. He used one instance. I'll use another. The coroner is an example. We had a staunch Republican who is, and I will simply say, forced probably is a good word. I'll just simply say he chose not to run. A staunch Republican. We have a gentleman by the name of Novachis who is now the Republican candidate, and he's not a Republican as far as I'm concerned, because the last 20-some years he's voted as a Democrat. I think 2022 was the first time he voted as a Republican. So what would you consider him?
Well, and that's a great question. But, also there are some folks that do, like with the 2016 election, did switch over and decide, hey, I think that this party's changing and I want to be a part of it. And is it hard to decipher, was this a true switch, or was it a switch because you wanted to win an election? And that's kind of been my question for so many candidates. Did you switch because you believed in this movement, or did you switch, like you guys say, and like a lot of us say, because you can't win as a Democrat?
Well, I guess my better question would be, why did the true Republican drop out of the race?
Right. Now, that's a great question. And do you guys have any thoughts to answer that question from Dwight?
we don't have thoughts. We know why he dropped out. But it's kind of slimy. And, it's a shameful thing to talk about. It's a shameful thing to do, I mean, all of the stuff you hear about politics.
Right.
I'm sad to say, since I've gotten involved, most of it's true. All the dirty dealing, all of the, imagine, if you will, you have folks that are out making a living every day, and they go and they vote, and they hope they get good elected officials, right?
Right.
But officials that get elected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week are politicking. They're in their office that you're paying for, figuring out how to win the next election, right? And they're making deals, and they're pulling their team together, and they spend their entire adult life, all the way till they retire, politicking. They will do, because it's their life. Imagine that, it's their life. It's not their job, it's their life. So they will do whatever they have to do to protect that. And if they're morally weak, they'll do some very bad, terrible things. They'll say some terrible things. They'll threaten some terrible things. So then you've got a citizen who says, well, maybe I should get involved in politics, right? I'm going to try.
Right.
Well, you get this phone call. And they say, well, if you do that, boy, we're going to do this. And then you ask yourself, well, why would I go through that?
Well,
And they chase people out of the races.
Well, and that's a good point, and no one can deny the fact that that happens. It happens all the time. It's happened here locally. It happens nationally, where you have this type of, I guess it's, a little bit of blackmail that goes on when, and it's really not blackmail. A lot of it's just hearsay that's never, really formulated, but it does happen. And the dirty side of politics is definitely here in local races when, quite frankly, we should all be on the same team, I think, for our community.
When you mentioned, how do you know if someone's really a Republican, right?
Yeah.
And really, the idea of being a Republican says there's some values that we all share. Because Republican's a big tent. Like our organization's a big tent.
Right.
We don't really care. You could be a conservative Democrat. You could be a conservative independent. You could be. But there are some core values. So what we've done to try to determine that is every candidate that we support signs a pledge. And it says, here are the key values that we believe in. Do you believe in them? If you do, we expect you to vote along those core values, right? And if you don't, we're going to kick your butt out by primarying you, right? We will become the same people that got you in will be the same people that get you out if you don't keep your promise. So what we're trying to do is put people in office who know that someone's looking over their shoulder, right? They're accountable to what they said. So for us, that's how we know, because it doesn't matter if you're an R or D. If you agree with these principles, well, that's what we believe.
Votes.
That's right.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay. If you
100%.
If you show up at the Madison County Board and you vote against a taxpayer's right to vote on his own tax policy, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of separates the sheep from the goats to a certain extent. And one of the things that I want to let everybody know as citizens, okay, CJ, I showed you the Democratic ballot earlier. There's only one candidate on it, Joe Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, this primary election on the Republican side is the general. There are no Democratic candidates in November. The choices you make on Tuesday, March 19th are going to be the winners. And a lot of folks don't realize that.
No, and Steve, I don't know if you were reading my mind, but that was my segue, because that's something no one's talking about, that this technically is our general, because there are no Democrats on the ballot, and whoever's going to, between the chairman's race, the circuit clerk's race, everyone's race is going to be decided March the 19th. Is there any other way that it couldn't be decided? Because at this point, they didn't get their name on the ballot, correct?
Well, yeah, they didn't get their name on the ballot, and reality is that there are Democrats and Republicans on this primary ballot, and it's goofy and it's twisted and it's not fair to Democrats or Republicans. All I'm saying is that we need to take a careful look at who you're voting for and who their alliances are, because there are Democrats on this ballot and Republicans should show up and vote, because when good Republicans don't show up to vote, Democrats get elected.
And with that being said, too, how important has it been for you guys to get out there and really inform folks about this ballot? Because it is a confusing ballot, 100% confusing.
It's fundamental to this campaign, all our campaigns, to get out there and let people know. And we've laminated these ballots and given them to people when we go door to door, so they see it's not our word.
Right.
It's the ballot that's proof positive of what we're telling them, and they're shocked when they see that. They're shocked. So when you tell them that the foundations of this primary are broken, that we have only Republicans running, they say, how can that be? I said, well, I can't explain it to you, but maybe a couple sentences. And they get what's going on. They understand that this process has been corrupted, because they've never seen a ballot like this where there are no opposition Democrats on a ballot for a primary.
I don't think I've ever seen one in my short time voting. I haven't seen.
That's interesting because nobody has told me they've ever seen one like this either.
No.
You know, another cool thing about the way that this organization is developed and the way that politics, you know, as I'm a newbie and this guys have been in it for a long time, right?
Right.
But I'm a newbie. But I tell you what's so cool. If you look at where money comes from, right, and that's all public information. Mm-hmm. So if you go out and search where our opposition, right, to our candidates are getting our money, it's big money, right? Big money, it's 10, 15, 20, 30,000. Most of it's coming from Chicago. A lot of it's coming from folks that got big power and want to keep it, right? It's big money donations. If you look at how we do it, because we help these folks, right? Mm-hmm. We had a call out 2 days ago to get folks to come in and help us put stamps on. This is a grassroots effort. This organization works with grassroots. We're about grassroots. We are grassroots. We're not big money.
Right. But that hits the nail on the head, okay? Because you have to understand when there is money from Chicago that is flowing into these Democratic-backed candidates, you know, I've seen as much as $150,000 be transferred. Last week, or just 2 days ago, $15,000 was dumped into my opponent's campaign funds. And my point in all this is that what are these people buying? Okay, I mean, come on. You're not going to give $150,000 to somebody or in $15,000 chunks for nothing because you didn't have any, because you didn't feel like investing it.
Well, Steve, that's just the way Springfield works. That's why I said before, what you see in Springfield is what you're seeing now in Madison County.
Well, and another point I wanted to make too, because you know it seems like as the general election comes, you know we get all these promises not from the local side but from the statewide side about how we're going to work for the southern part of Illinois and we're going to make sure we remember you, and it turns to find out a lot of times it doesn't really happen. You know, it's still the same old regardless of who's Speaker of the House and regardless of anything. You can just look at the way the last 8 years have worked. How is there a way that you can put Madison County on the map with your board and really start alerting Springfield that, hey, this isn't working for us? There's a lot of folks that are disgruntled, and you can see that by the way the state splits.
Well, you know, the sad thing about Illinois is that we've had dominance by Democrats from northern Illinois, and now we have, of course, a second-term governor who's a Democrat, and Pritzker has carved up this state in such a way that it's very, very difficult for a Republican to win. There's only several really, really safe Republican districts, so it's going to remain that way a long time, and I don't foresee that changing maybe ever.
And do you think the gerrymandering and redistricting's caused a lot of these issues with primaries? Because it seems like the way that the split of the state is that some folks have to get more wild to secure a spot. If you're, on one side of the aisle or the other, it doesn't matter. Slap an R or D, you got to get louder. And then by the time the general comes around, it seems like it's harder to really find that consensus. That's just my thought for you guys, because you're in the thick of it. I'm not. I'm just watching, from the window here. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean,
that's a first.
Well, it's common sense.
Right.
I mean, in Springfield, if you're a Republican, you're going to have to give a lot to get something. Mm-hmm. And the dedicated conservatives won't do it. And so they look bad back home because they can't bring home very much. And you pay the price to look bad. You may not get elected again, but that's the price you pay. Very few Republicans get too much from anybody in Springfield. It's a tough job. If you live in a safe district like Jason Plummer, I mean, he'll win and win and win and win because he's got probably the safest district in Illinois. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if you're a Republican like Miller, mm-hmm. he doesn't have a safe district. He's always in trouble.
Right.
A lot of these guys have tough districts, and big money coming out of Chicago, like Lee mentioned before. Yeah. It's $200,000, $300,000, maybe $1 million. So how do you compete with that? Well, you don't. But what I guess my point is that the transition from Springfield now and what we're seeing in Madison County is very, very much alike, and it's very troubling.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, especially if you're seeing those correlations from your experience hands-on on both sides of that issue. And with that being said, you guys got a moment to stick around? I got to pay a quick bill.
Sure.
Now, it's 10:21. I got to pay one bill. We'll come back with more of this great conversation right after this on RiverBender.com.
When I got in the car accident at the ER, they gave me a prescription of hydrocodone. And over time, it took more medication to mask the pain. I moved over to drug seeking and found heroin and fentanyl. I went to the Centerstone rehab facility, and it was the best decision I ever made in my life. I have my own car, I have a job, there's nothing holding me back anymore.
Dream Home Realty Center.
Hey Sherry, talk to me, Dream Team.
We've got Joey.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or a weekend warrior, gear up with Falcommit and elevate your hunting experience. From rugged gear for the seasoned hunter to adorable outfits for the little ones, we've got your whole family covered. Literally, because the best moments are made in the great outdoors. And with Falcommit, you're not just wearing gear, you're wearing the stories of your adventures. Discover the joy of hunting together. Visit Falcommit.com and outfit your family for the next generations of memories.
We are Phillips 66 Wood River Refinery. We make the fuels that take us to work and our children to school. We make materials and energy products that allow us to stay connected to each other. We care about the quality and safety of our products because we care about the communities we share. Our employees live our values of safety, honor, and a commitment to act as good neighbors where we live and operate. We are Phillips 66. When life throws unexpected challenges your way, you need a versatile legal ally to protect you. Sean Lentz, with over 12 years of experience, is here to help you in a variety of avenues. From personal injury to criminal defense and even semi-truck accidents, Sean Lentz has your back. Don't wait for the justice that you deserve. Call 618-465-8000 and see how Sean can help you today.
You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Naselli on RiverBender.com.
And I wonder why the little things you find they coming true. Oh, telephone line, give me some time. I'm living in twilight. Oh, telephone line.
1024, welcome back to this 14th day of March. You know, did you guys hear my St. Louis monologue about Pi Day, about the temporary stickers and the potholes? Anyway, it was wonderful. But, you know, getting back to the real meat of this issue, and that is that primary day is March the 19th, and RiverBender.com will be bringing you that coverage live right here as we did the last 3 elections with more insights and conversations. Right now, as it sits, I think it would be really great for me, for our audience, to ask you what are the issues you stand on, because we touched on a couple of them, but what are the issues of the Conservative Caucus? What's the platform?
Pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-taxpayer candidates is what we wanted to build, a different political organization. And the organization we formed was specifically in response to this problem, okay? The Republican primary voter is a very trusting person. You know, they pull a Republican ballot, they see Republicans on the ballot, and they figure, well, you know what, they're all Republicans, and they're not. So what we did was we came up with the Madison County Conservative Caucus, and we have a seal on the bottom of our literature that you can pick up any piece of literature and you can see that individual is a bona fide Republican, okay, and has conservative values, and I can guarantee you that person is pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, and a pro-taxpayer candidate.
And with that being said, too, on your literature, I think it's wonderful that every one of the candidates is giving out contact information, too. And that's one thing I will say from a personal standpoint, regardless of what side of the coin you are on this issue, you got a lot. It's refreshing to see that a candidate's saying, call me and ask what's on your mind, tell me what's on your mind, and let's see how we fix it. Is that something that you look for in your guys' candidates, or is that just an added bonus?
No, we expect it. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to come represent voters need to be able to tell you what they want you to represent,
Yeah.
right? So, as you know, by saying that, what you've said is what happens when people get elected, then they disappear.
Right.
If you look at all the elected officials now, almost everyone in Madison County, you can't find them. Right? They've got a bogus email. You can't get that. They won't return those things, right? You don't have a way to get them on the phone. You can't call the county building and get to them. So you might be able to get an email through. Mm-hmm. So once they're elected, it just seems like these people become politicians. I mean, it's just so sad, right? Because they go from wanting to do something, wanting to really make changes, wanting to really represent people, and they get in that atmosphere around all of these folks who've been in the game forever, and they love all over them, and cozy up to them and take them out for a beer, a cup of coffee, and before you know it, they're good old buddies, and then they don't want to vote against their buddy. They don't want to take a tough stand against their buddy. They forget.
Right.
That they're to represent voters. Voters put them in there. They're not there for a lifelong gig.
Well, and just again, that's an issue that it doesn't matter who you are, what R or D you like. It happens to a lot of folks where they're going to be the voice of the people, and then all of a sudden it's the voice of the donor check.
You look at it as an example. You look what happened just this past year in the budget in Madison County. The party's kind of the higher end of the party, right? The old timers have kind of taken over the building there. The budget, for the first time in years, has gone up double digit in every department. Every department had a double digit increase. Every department. Now, think about last year. Last year, they had tons of money come into the county because of COVID, right? The government just printed this stuff like it was water, right?
True, yeah.
In fact, there was so much money that came into the county last year that this little group of power brokers hired one of their buddies and paid him $60,000 just to hand it out. Just to pass it out. There's so much money, they didn't want to take the time to figure out how to pass it out, right? So another job for somebody's friend,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the kind of thing, if you don't vote, that's what you're giving into. That's what you're allowing to happen. And since this election is going to be so low, probably, the turnout's going to be so little, your vote means more than ever.
Well, and that's a great point, because that's what I wanted to ask is where's turnout right now as it sits? Because this could make or break a lot of people's races. Down in the toilet? Really?
Yeah, it's really well. Yeah, CJ, in a Republican, well, actually any election,
Yeah.
the turnout is driven by the top of the ticket. Okay, when Nikki Haley dropped out, okay, there are voters out there that believe there's no reason to go out and vote, but when you don't vote in situations like this, you expose the bottom of the Republican ticket to crossover votes. And, these folks are endorsed by Democrats. They're going to come out to vote on Election Day. And when Republican voters don't show up, Democrats get elected. Isn't that in a Republican primary? I know it's perverse, but that's just the way it is.
Steve, one thing we might want to mention, we do something kind of old-fashioned. At least most of our candidates are out every day knocking doors. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I knocked day before I knocked 70 doors, and it takes a while.
Yes, it does.
Those are doors that I had not met before because they weren't home the first time around. And so I made sure that they knew what their new assessment looked like, mm-hmm. because I had mine with me, and it's about an 8% increase. And so I said, we need to put a stop to this. And these people agreed with me 100% that our taxes are outrageous, they're uncontrolled, and they want a choice. Now, underline everything that Steve said before about what we're about.
Right.
What we're really about is choice, people's choice, because right now they don't have any. Yeah, they can choose their elected official, but if their elected official doesn't want to be a representative, he wants to be a delegate, people at home are out of luck. And a lot of these guys get pretty big heads when they get elected and they forget how they got there. So what I'm saying is the fact that people come first and their choice comes first needs to be mentioned.
100.
That's really, really.
That's a great point you make, Dwight. And with that being said, we're running out of time here, but I want to give you guys the opportunity once again to share your platform with the audience briefly. And then, of course, I wanted to go through, if you wanted to, and name some of the candidates that you'd like to recommend to the audience.
Certainly. Dwight, you want to go first and I'll go second?
Well, I'm obviously I am a staunch supporter of Kurt Prenzler. I think Kurt has done an admirable job. In fact, he's done an extraordinarily good job as chairman under circumstances which have been less than favorable. And I don't have time to talk about that, but it's a situation which shouldn't have happened. It won't happen again. Never should have happened in the first place. But to go through a circumstance that he's been put under by people who have set him out literally to fail, that's not right. And we're going to see that doesn't happen again. My good friend Steve Adler is a supreme person. He's a very, very sharp guy when it comes to numbers and organization. That's something that that department has not had. That's the Circuit Clerk's office has not had. And he's got a vision for the future. And I think he's going to do extraordinarily well. He's running against a fellow who has no experience. Frankly, he needs to grow a little bit before he takes on another job. And I think Steve should be the guy that everyone considers for that position. I'll stop there. I'll let these other guys endorse a few other people.
Well, as far as my campaign for Madison County Circuit Clerk, what we need to do in that office is we need to modernize it. And, there are some cases that still need, particularly civil cases, that still have to be filed in person. And, the idea that an organization that brings in $800,000 a month in revenue is going to make you sit there and pay your lawyer $350 an hour to stand in line. Today, it's just ridiculous, and we need to get that system upgraded. And the same thing with digitizing documents that aren't of historical significance. We need to get those in a position where your lawyer can find them without going to the clerk's office and standing in line for $350 an hour there too. And I've got a lot of great ideas. I'm not really sure what I'm gonna run into when I'm there, but I was at the Metro East Sanitary District, and I did such a good job that Mike Madigan and the Democrats sponsored a bill to give one of the board members to Granite City so they could have their way of life back. Well, I'm not into ways of life like that. I'm a taxpayer advocate, and I've always been that way. You can check my record, and whatever you could do to help me, I'd appreciate.
And then, Lee, anything else that you wanted to add to this conversation before we say goodbye?
Yeah, let me mention our other candidates and ask that folks to look at them and check them out and research them and then ultimately vote for them, right? But Michael Turner's running against a lady who, up until now, has been a Democrat for years.
Retired county employee.
Yeah, worked in the county building as a Democrat, been around through history, So maybe she's a Republican, but Michael Turner, we know, is a Republican. He's already served 2 years, done a great job. Bob Coles, who you may know, Bob is local here in this area.
Right.
He's the chief of police for South Roxana, and we're proud to have Bob on our ticket. Linda Wolf. Linda Wolf has been very active at grassroots. She's a member of the Women's Conservative Coalition. We support her. We hope folks do. Obviously, we support Dwight. I mean, you couldn't get a better guy
That'd be
than
pretty
Dwight,
awkward
right?
if you didn't with him in the room.
I know that guy. I mean, we're lucky to even get him to run, And then Doug Matthews. Doug Matthews is a CPA, so he'll bring some needed a money sense, if you will, to these budgets. When they come in and in less than an hour can pass a budget that no one questions, that has the kind of increases we just talked about, we need some fiscal responsibility, and Doug will help bring that in.
And with that being said, you guys are more than welcome on Tuesday to call in, let us know how you're feeling Tuesday night for election coverage. We'd love to talk to you all. And with that being said, it's 10:35. You can find out more information on the Madison County Conservative Caucus by going to madcoconservatives.org. That's madcoconservatives.org. And primary day is this coming Tuesday at 10:35. A quick break, and we'll come back with more of our daily show.